And good morning, everyone. It is the 8th of December. Christmas is fast approaching. Welcome to Chat Canna. We have an exciting show for you today. And of course, today we are having some technical problems. And I don't know why, because I'm streaming. I have more than 100 megabyte download speed. I've been testing it and testing it and testing it. I think it's something with YouTube, because even if I shut everything off and just try and get a YouTube feed, I am having this problem. So if we have this during the show, I totally apologize for you. It was going to be the big thing that I'm bringing you this little 4-minute video from Europe about hemp wood or hemp plastic, depending on the word that you want to use. And it was going to be, oh, wow, this is so great. This is so great. I'm so happy about this. And worked fine an hour ago. And this is how live shows go, of course. I may have to just remake the show later on sometime today, and I will be happy to do that for you. But this is really, really neat. This is a big company over in Europe that's really putting a lot of money into these things. It's called Hemp Flax. That's the company that's doing the raising of the hemp and the processing of it and getting it over to the company that's making it into the furniture. And so without any other ado, let me shut off the ticker, and we're going to try and get this so that it is doing what we want. Let's see if we can bring it on the screen here. There it is. I'll be the little guy. I might wipe myself out, so that's the only thing going on the screen. But I don't think any of the problem is here with my systems. It's just that all of a sudden YouTube is not playing this cool video. And if it fails on us today, I will get it for you tomorrow. It's just an unfortunate thing because doing this has been working historically on other shows that I have. And like I said, it worked an hour ago, and all of a sudden YouTube is choking on us, even if I'm just trying to load this on a different computer, not anything to do with my broadcast equipment here. And again, testing it, got 100 megabytes download easy. This takes a tiny fraction of that. Let's see what we can get.
Hi, ik ben Gert-Jan. Welkom bij Duurzaam Doen met VP en Thea. Ja, ik ben aan het werk. Ik sta hier namelijk in ons greenfield, vlak achter onze fabriek in Emmen. Dit is onze proeftuin, waar we onderzoek doen naar nieuwe biologische grondstoffen. Zoals hennep. Kijk, deze planten zijn in april gezaaid. En 2 weken geleden gemaaid en gedroogd. En daar maken we nu de balen van. Al die balen die verzamelen we hier bij Hempflax in de Oude Pekela. En die balen die leggen we in deze machine. Daar scheiden we de vezel van het hout. En deze natuurlijke vezel is super sterk. En die ruwe vezel die wordt gehekeld en gekamd. En dan krijg je deze laagjes. En de machine achter mij, dan persen we al die laagjes in elkaar. En dan krijg je deze mat. Om zo'n mat te kunnen gebruiken voor een stoel heb je wel een bindmiddel nodig. Een natuurlijk bindmiddel. Recyclebaar en afbreekbaar, want anders beginnen we er helemaal niet aan. Dat was inderdaad niet makkelijk. Maar we hadden geluk. We kwamen in contact met professor Dr. Gadi Rotenberg.
Hoi, ik ben Gadi. Ik ben de hoogleraar hydrogeenkatalyse en duurzame chemie aan de Universiteit van Amsterdam. En een paar jaar geleden had ik een idee om vanuit biomassa en biobrandstof en biokerosine te maken. Maar het lijkt dat het een slecht idee was, want in plaats van biokerosine krijgen wij dit soort kleefbrut. Die aan alles vastbindt. Het was net een hash. Ja, precies, een house.
En juist dit materiaal is de natuurlijke binder waarmee wij verder kunnen. Samen met Fritsen van Plantix. Toch, Fritsen?
Jazeker. Wij zijn met dat kleverige goedje aan de slag gegaan. En ontwikkelden zo een unieke, hoogwaardige biologische lijm. Uit puur natuurlijke restmaterialen die ook nog eens een keer recyclebaar zijn en als ze terugkomen in de natuur, biologisch afbreekbaar zijn. Daarna hebben Vapor, Tarantea en Plantix de krachten gebundeld, het proces opgezet,
Toegepast, getest, geoptimaliseerd en onderzocht. En er ging niet zonder slag of stoot. Maar we wilden vol. En we hebben voor elk probleem een oplossing weten te vinden. Ik ben Albert, ook van Vapor Tarantea. We gingen net zo lang door totdat we een hoogwaardig product konden maken, uitsluitend uit biologisch restmateriaal. En dat is ons geluk. Als eerste bedrijf in de wereld. Heel bijzonder. Zo bijzonder dat het wereldwijd gepatenteerd is. Kijk, deze hennepmatten zijn behandeld met Plantix biogas. Die leggen we in deze man. En na het persen is hij supersterk. Mooi hè? Formaldehydevrij met een negatieve CO2-footprint. En direct klaar voor gebruik. Dit zijn ze dan. Dit alleen hartstikke duurzaam, maar ook nog eens een keer prachtig om te zien. Dit is de HEMP FIBER. En dat is de HEMP High. Snap je? En dan nog iets. Na gebruik willen we de stoelen graag weer terug. Elk onderdeel gebruiken we weer opnieuw. We gooien niets weg.
nee, we gooien niks weg.
Nee, helemaal niks.
No waste.
Absoluut. Kijk, volledig biologisch. Herbruikbaar. En uit Nederland. Zo simpel is het.
Simpel, echt niet.
Dus je moet niet denken. Duurzaam, moet je gewoon doen.
Well, there you go. What a story, huh? And I'm happy it actually worked all the way through. You know, once in a while you get it right, and once in a while you don't, and it worked for us. Wow, I'd like to go back and take that video apart and show you all those different steps. But if you remember seeing kind of that mat that they made that was kind of like insulation, well, that's also being used in Europe now in car manufacturing, right there. That piece right there, before it's pressed into the chairs, is finding its way into cars as insulation, like, you know, where the fenders are and in all the places where they want to make quiet. Same reason. It's very inexpensive. It has great insulative factors. It is not plastic. It doesn't burn well after it's been treated, because it burns really good when it comes off the field. It is just a great product. And when it's time to tear the car apart again, it's completely 100% recyclable in one way or another, and it doesn't take any oil to make it. It's just a wonderful, wonderful product. Now, what you saw there, they bale it. That's industrial hemp, by the way. You know, we always talk about CBD hemp here a lot, and the CBD hemp plants look like Christmas trees. That's industrial hemp. It's one stalk going up the middle with the seed pod up at the top, if they let it grow that long. And it's one very thin, almost like a bamboo rod, if you can imagine that. And what they're taking off that is the bark, or we call it the silk that's around the outside. And that's a decorticator that it's being put through there. Actually, it's more than a decorticator, but the part that we want does decorticating. It takes the silk off the outside. The herd is what's on the inside, and that goes off to the hempcrete people, or insulation of a different kind, or cattle, where the cattle lay. Miss words some days. But, you know, instead of straw for the cattle to lay on, it has a lot of uses that way. You can compress it into little corn-sized pellets, and it has more energy in it than a corn pellet does, 1 for 1. So you can use it in your corn burning stove, and when you load it up, it lasts longer. Or if you heat it, it's got more heat in it than the equivalent amount of corn. And it's cheaper. Did I mention that? So these are the things that we have to inspire American investors to get involved in over here, because this is now not rocket science. It's not new and being invested. I have a great story to tell you about rosin and resin. And it's funny how these things have stuck with me through my life. Back in the 70s, when I first got involved with the Fisher Space Pen, because a good friend and mentor of mine, Bob Flodine, who is 90 this year, by the way, out in Boulder City, Nevada. Well, we were in Los Angeles at the time, but Boulder City, Nevada, now where the factory is. But Mr. Fisher in the 60s wanted to invent a pen that could go on space flights. NASA had put out the challenge to invent things that spacemen could use, because it was spacemen back there. Sorry, ladies, the idea of putting a woman in space happened many years later. But so spacemen needed different things. And one of the problems they had in writing in space was that they could not use a pen because it required gravity to pull the ink down to the ball. So after you've tried it, you've written upside down, and after a couple of words, it runs out. They couldn't use a graphite pencil because graphite conducts electricity. And so, you know, as you were writing, if a little bit of that broke off, floated around the cabin, got between some electric switch conduits, contacts, all sorts of bad things could happen. So they were using grease pencils. That's what they were using to take notes and keep score and do all of the things that they were using, both the Russians and the Americans. Of course, you've seen all of the snarky things were written up that, you know, the Americans spent $10 million inventing a pen that could go in space, and the Russians used a pencil. That's just somebody's writing and stupidity. First of all, the Americans didn't spend any money on creating a pen to go into space. Mr. Fisher spent the money all himself. And back in the 60s, it was his claim that he spent over $1 million developing it. Maybe he did. Certainly he put untold numbers of hours in on it, and he was a night owl. He worked into the night. I was fortunate enough to know him from 1977 or 78 on until he passed away here about 12 years ago. And I have nothing but great respect for the guy. But one thing that he was really, really good at was spinning a yarn, telling a story that would captivate you. So whether it was $1 million back in the 60s or it was some other amount, I don't think it's too important. The fact was he wouldn't let it go. And he had a big enough company that he could take people off their jobs, guys that were working in the shop that were literally inventors, because everything that he needed made to make pens or to make them better or to make the way they went down the line and being processed and having points put in and being put together and packaged and everything like that was all being invented in his shop. There was no Amazon or eBay or internet and Google where you could go and find somebody who had invented it in South America and you could just buy their product. So all these things were being invented by engineers in his shop, and he could take one off for a couple of weeks or a month and have them figure out pressurized refills. And he had this idea and he had that idea and he had this idea and he had that idea. And finally one night, his dad came to him in a dream. And his dad said, try using resin. Well, he took that to his chemist, had a chemist on staff too, of course, making new ink formulas. And that's a whole nother story I'll tell you sometime about how our ink formulas would change by the hour sometimes. But he took it to his chemist. And the chemist said, I don't think that I can use resin. Resin is a sticky substance. And it changes with heat. And I don't think that that's right. And he played with it a while and he was going back and forth. And finally he called Mr. Fisher up and he said, because we never challenged Mr. Fisher on his thoughts or his experiences or whatever happened. So the chemist said, in your dream, could your dad have said rosin instead of resin? Mr. Fisher says, well, I mean, that's possible. It was a dream after all. And so he tried rosins. Now in the Fisher pen ink, using rosin all of a sudden became a magical thing because rosin made the ink thixotropic. And the word thixotropic means that it's basically sitting as a solid, but when you shear it off by the ball coming around, the ball was kind of sandpapery. And as the ball sheared it off, it turned into a liquid. It rolled around the ball, went down on the paper, and then as it was sitting on the paper, it turned back into kind of a gummy solid. And that was the miracle that made the Fisher Space Pen work, because putting nitrogen gas behind it as pressure, pushing it down all the time so it could write upside down, whether there was atmosphere or not, or it didn't need gravity because it could write in any form, in any shape on the earth, in any way you hold it. But in space, it didn't matter that there was no gravity because the ink was always being pushed by the nitrogen gas and a plug behind it. Got down to the ball sheared it off because of the sandpaper-like finish on it, brought it around to the paper in a liquid form, and it dried instantly on the paper. And we had the Fisher Space Pen. That was the rosin and resin story. Here in today's story, of course, it's the opposite. They needed the stickiness of the rosin to match up with the silky, fibery, you saw it there, those layers of almost look like insulation, and press that together to make the hemp wood, to make these chairs that are absolutely beautiful, incredibly strong, can last as long as you want them to last in the wood finish or in the wood form. But when you're done with them, they are completely and 100% recyclable. Go back and look at that. You will look at what we need to do to be able to start raising industrial hemp, particularly across the plains of like North Dakota, Nebraska, where we have wide open fields where the farmers want to plant 80 acres across, 160 acres across. Different than the CBD farmers that are thinking about, an acre here and an acre here, where every plant is named and numbered, and each plant is really calculated for what it gives. The North Dakota style of farming, and I do that beyond the state of North Dakota. It's all across Canada, all the way up north of Edmonton even. They can raise this because hemp is a fast-growing, short-season crop. Then it can be cut, as he said, dried a bit, baled, and then when you've got it in a bale, you can take months to actually get it to the harvester or the harvesting machine, where you saw that knife was opening it up, slicing it apart, putting it into the fingers that were taking it in, running it through. That particular machine actually does more than decorticates. It ends up with 4 streams. Coming out of that machine is a stream of seeds. Coming out of that machine is I got to be careful how I lift my fingers. Coming out of that machine is a stream of the buds that are on those plants, where there would be some CBD and any other pharmaceutical things. Coming out of that machine is the satin, the silk that we were using in this show, that they want for making the chairs, making paper, making blue jeans. And the fourth thing, of course, is the hurd, the inside. It looks just like the inside of a sunflower stalk if you've taken that apart, much the same. And in there is the hurd that goes to hempcrete, cow bedding, can be pressed for corn fire, everything like that. Go back and watch it, knowing those things as you're going through. That's our Chat Canna for today. We hope that you will join us again tomorrow, if I can get the right, there we go. Join us again tomorrow. We are so happy that you were here today. We're here Monday through Thursday, bringing you more hemp news, more hemp information, and every once in a while, a really great guest. So thanks for joining us today. Come see us again, and stay safe, wear your mask, and we'll have a great Christmas. Might be very much separated, very much alone, but we will get through this and we'll get back to the way it was, and we can start hugging people again.